Well, now's not the time to talk about that anyway. Oh, 15-minute limit.
Just turn the wheel and just
Good evening. This meeting will come to order. It is 7:30. On behalf of the Harrison School Board, I welcome you. We are always delighted when we have our patrons attend school board meetings. For those of you who may not be familiar with Harrison School Board meetings, as with many of other organizations, Harrison School Board meetings are meetings held in public. They are not necessarily public meetings. The public has the legally protected right, and we always enjoy it when we have patrons come and observe our proceedings. For the sake of getting on with things tonight, there will be no sign-up sheet. We will take first come, first served, those people who wish to address the board. And Mr. Halbrook's timekeeper. Everybody will have 15 minutes. You are not allowed to give somebody else your 15 minutes, but everybody who's here tonight, we welcome you. And if you'd like to speak, let's begin.
I'll start the show off. I'd like
Yes,
to
sir.
thank you. I'd like to introduce myself to the board. My name is Dr. Kirby Moss. I am on our school board, and next to distinguished member, Mr. Dallas Sherman.
Glad to have you with us, Dr. Moss. Yes, sir.
Dr. Joe, my name is Ed Knight.
You.
And when you take and say about the participants, I kind of look at it as being a taxpayer who pays towards this. My question is, who sent in the petition, and when does a person sends in the petition, how are they notified of the meeting? I mean, to me, it really comes down to respect. I mean, if you expect children to respect you as a teacher or as administrators or as taxpayers, then you have to be able to give respect back. Thank you.
Thank you.
No answer. Okay.
Are there others?
Can you all imagine a few things with me? Put your imaginary hats on and listen to a few sentences. Just imagine some things. Can you imagine the Harrison School District with an abundance of community and parent support and volunteers who are willing to help the teachers and administrators implement the district's mission? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine pages and pages of positive publicity in the local newspaper, on radio, television, beamed out to the district patrons here via radio and television? Can you imagine that? Pages and pages of positive comments, accolades, whatever. Can you imagine bank accounts here in this area, in all areas, in all the financial institutions? Every one of them, which reflect an abundance of financial support, full to the brim of district funding, belonging to the Harrison School District. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine taxpayer support, unequaled, anywhere in Arkansas? Can you imagine that? Taxpayer support. I heard the gentleman say something about taxpayer. Can you imagine word from the Boone County Collector's Office that tax collections are continually, constantly at 100%? Every dime owed to this school district. Can you imagine what would happen if that would happen? Can you imagine student reading levels ranked the highest in the state? And with every student enrolled in a developmental reading class every day. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine perfect attendance records for each pupil and every staff member, so that you never have to worry about someone being absent every day? Can you imagine that? And can you imagine every campus totally drug and alcohol free every day, every week, every month, every year? Can you imagine, as a board member, the highest test scores, student test scores, of any district in Arkansas, especially in achievement academic areas of social studies, literacy, and math, and language arts and science? Can you imagine that in the Harrison School District? Can you imagine also every student happily, and I want to underscore that word, happily enrolled in one or more meaningful student activity programs? Every child. Your child, my child, your grandchild, my grandchild. Our neighbor's child, our neighbor's grandchild. Can you imagine that? Every child happily enrolled. And can you imagine a district where everyone, parents and patrons alike, everyone is familiar with district policies? Not just familiar with them, but actually putting those into practice. Or the rules or regulations. Or state law. And if you've seen the law book relating to K-12 education, it's about 2.5 pages thick. You can get a copy for about $65 or $70. Every child, every staff member, every employee, knowing every rule, every regulation, every state law that pertains to their employment or their enrollment here in the school district. And can you imagine a district where everyone gladly abides by the intent and purposes of those district policies, rules, regulations, and state law? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine various colleges and universities, not only here in this state, but outside the confines of this state, vocational schools, trade schools, actively trying to recruit our students into productive and appropriate post-secondary careers? Can you imagine that? knocking our doors down almost to get at our students because they're so well prepared. Can you imagine that? And can you imagine lots and lots of families, good families, strong families, well-heeled families in terms of art and music and family values? Can you imagine those people coming here because of the reputation garnered by this school district all across the nation? Can you imagine that? Can you, as a board member, imagine every eligible district patron registered to vote? Every one of them registered to vote to support any and all millage proposals submitted to them by the Board of Education. Can you imagine that? Every eligible patron. And can you imagine every building, every bus, every piece of equipment, every facility, well maintained, clean, safe for every student, every parent, every patron, every employee that must use those pieces of equipment or facility? Can you imagine that? And can you imagine this district serving as a growth magnet for people wanting to move in here, to settle here, to raise their families here? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine an absence of vandalism here in this district? Can you imagine an absence of mean-spiritedness here? And can you imagine a district absence with an absence of conflict? No vandalism, no mean-spiritedness, no conflict. Can you imagine that? Harrison School District.